I'll go ahead and read them for you guys. I got to read them off of Scrivener. I've tried reading off of Royal Road, and it's just really hard to do. So you'll see me scrolling down here. My left arm is pretty hurt. I've been going to a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu gym to try to lose weight, and I had a couple of young bucks who tore me up tonight. So good for them. I'm happy for them, but I haven't been in that kind of pain in a long time. You may hear my kids in the background. They're supposed to be going to sleep, and as anyone with kids knows, that's appears to be an optional process. All right, here we go. Devil Dog by Jonathan Scherger. Chapter 1. Inload. Alert. Unauthorized subject loaded into system. Binding. Failed. Burning. Failed. Ejection. Failed. System restart. In progress. Error. 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 This is what splashed all over my vision when I opened my eyes in that dark room for the first time. I squinted and tried to rub them to clear the crimson-edged gold lettering away, but rough metal bit into my wrists. I strained to look down and saw iron shackles chaining me to some kind of stone table with foreign lettering all over it. It looked like jungle war graffiti, but it stung my eyes when I lingered on it. What the? The room shook with some kind of terrific impact, fully lifting me from the table for a second before slamming me back down. Stars burst behind my vision as the back of my skull slammed into the stone of the table. Something screeched nearby, and my gaze shot over to the sound, but I couldn't see due to the dim scarlet light. Movement. A blur of something in the dark. The sound of scrabbling over metal. The smell of burning fat. Flames roared suddenly in the corner, and what I saw chilled my blood. It was some kind of monster, a little hunchbacked gremlin-looking thing with spines running down its back. It had fangs in its mouth like broken knives, and its eyes were slits of toxic yellow. Some kind of weird red outline edged it all around, and it had a bunch of actual question marks floating above its head. It caught sight of me. Its unnatural eyes widened in shock. It screamed, and it went for the machete hanging off its hip. Yeah, I wasn't waiting around to see what it could do with that. I exploded into action immediately, hurling myself to a sitting position on the table and wrenching my legs around to face it. Those chains still tied me to that table, but I had them at full extension and quivering as I faced off against the freak in the corner. Backlit by the flames, the gremlin clawed at its belt, and it seemed to be struggling to get the weapon free. Not about to let the incompetence of an enemy go to waste. I strained against the chains holding me, and I felt something give. The plates holding them to the floor were weakening. With a snarl, I pump-kicked my legs out and ripped my arms forward. At the same time, the room rocked again, and the combined force tore the plates free from the ground. Gremlin thing hit the deck, scrabbling around, and finally got its weapon out. It screamed and ran from me, wheeling the machete above its head. Little did it know, this was not the first time something had gone for me with a machete. I lunged forward and shoulder-checked it. The meat of my bicep punched into its face as I blocked its machete arm with both forearms. My right hand lashed out and snatched its bony wrist, while my left raked down with clawed fingers across its face. It howled, hot slobber spraying across my arm. Grimacing, I twisted away while still holding its wrist and jerked its arm to full extension. My knee smashed into its elbow and through, breaking the limb upward with the sound of chicken bones crunching in a dog's mouth. It screamed again, dropping the machete. I caught it before it hit the ground, whirled back and slammed the rusty point into the gremlin's neck just above its collarbone. Its scream cut off abruptly, and it choked on the 2 feet of brutal iron bisecting its lungs. I wasn't done. I wrenched the weapon around a little, spreading the internal damage, jerked the blade out and swung as hard as I could at its scrawny neck. It raised a hand to stop the hit, but the dull machete just swept through its fingers and chunked into its neck. Its head dropped immediately, and its body slumped to the ground. I stood over it, breathing hard, trying to process in the sudden silence. I just killed something. Not human. And it really was not. Its fanged jaw drooled some kind of acid onto the floor, and its entire body felt hot, like a cast iron pan handle held through an oven mitt. Then, to add to the surreal horror of the whole thing, magic words popped up over its body. Encounter completed. Kills 1. Isolated. XP multiplier times 2. XP gained 2. What the frick? Then more words overlaid my vision, like the first ones I saw when I woke up. Level gained. Choose class. 3 options sprang up in front of me, but just then the room rocked again, almost pitching me from my feet. I staggered to keep them, but the freaking choices wouldn't clear until I actually did something. How do I do this? I growled, and finally just stabbed my finger at one of the choices. It buzzed angrily and shot a big red X into my vision. Infernal Warrior. Denied. Burning required. Okay, I said, and poked at another one. Same thing. Infernal Reaver. Denied. Burning required. Fine, then go away, I muttered, and tried to swipe at the ethereal words. No good. I wound up just scrolling through a bunch of choices available to me, appearing 3 choices per line. Apparently, I had to pick something, but nothing would let me pick it. Each one gave me the same error. Burning required. What is a burning? I growled, getting ticked off. Then I saw the sort icon in the upper right of my vision. I poked it, and it shot up the option for a bunch of filters. I remember doing this stuff, working spreadsheets and crap like that where fanged monsters didn't run around. Sure enough, one of the options was burning, ascending. I hit that one. One option glowed blue. 1. Paladin. I heaved a sigh. Fine, we'll go with that one. I tapped it. Celestial Paladin class selected. The room rocked again, distant explosions sounding off, and something roared so loudly it shook the grates at my feet. Wherever I was, didn't like that choice. Good, I grunted. But apparently I still wasn't done. Select skill tree. You've got to be kidding me, I snarled. Who knew how many more of these things were stalking in the dark out there, and I was stuck in here trying to get through options screens on my own eyeballs. I hit 1 at random, and thank God it took it. Paladin skill tree judgment selected. Level 2 skill granted. Radiant shot. Whatever, don't care, I said, and at last the irritating words vanished. An alarm sounded, some kind of foghorn bray, and a deep voice growled over speakers in the ceiling. System restarting. All suppressive fields are down. Terminate subjects. Snarls and roars sounded beyond the single door, and my gaze snapped over to it. Beneath the wailing alarms and distant explosions, I could hear chanting, low and guttural, punctuated by sudden screams. Claws started pounding against my door. Well, that sounds bad, I muttered. More text popped up in my vision. Celestial Paladin, M. Garcia, successfully registered. Welcome to the game. I flipped the machete around in my hand once, getting a feel for its weight, and let out a slow breath. I glanced at the thing laying dead on the floor. Its red outline had disappeared, and now it was limned in white. From the sound of the crowd at the door, there would be more of those. Okay, I said, hefting the machete and turning to the door. Thanks for having me. Chapter 2. New Toy. Words blazed across the door in bright crimson lettering. Lockdown in effect. Remain in receiving chamber. Yeah, no, I said, glancing around. I didn't know what that thing was that I just killed, but it sounded like 50 of his buddies were outside, and I wasn't waiting around until they managed to get to me. I'm a Marine, waiting to get eviscerated, aimed in the DNA. Screeching, skittering, and guttural snarls echoed faintly through the metal of the door, and I blew my breath out slowly. Time to get proactively violent, devil. Something boomed in the distance, and the room reeled from the explosion, knocking me staggering. Man, it was like serving aboard ship again, except you could predict when the vessel would rock. That brought back memories of the bad old days, and I shoved those aside. I wasn't on ship. I was here, and I needed to figure out how to survive. Once I figured out where here was, I took a second to assess my situation. I was clothed in grungy rags and shorts, leaving my feet and most of my chest bare. I had Ugly's machete, but it wasn't real sharp. I needed something better before hitting the crowd outside. I glanced around the room. Stone table, weird markings. Very sacrificial altar vibe to it. I still had the shackles and lengths of chain on my wrists. I guessed I could use those if it came down to it. I cocked my head. There was a strange closet across the room from me. That was the direction Ugly had come from. I could see glowing red letters pulsing steadily from it. I got closer, and when I squinted at the writing, it suddenly expanded into my vision. Catalog of subject effects. M4 Benelli shotgun. Deposit. Failed. Unauthorized subject loaded. Binding. Failed. Burning. Failed. Deposit. Rejected. Dispose of subject and effects. That explained why it wanted to kill me as soon as I woke up. But does it really have? I opened the little door, and sure enough, there she was. My favorite shotgun in the whole world, the M4 Benelli. Semi automatic spray and flay. I reached out and grabbed it. This will be handy. More text popped up on screen. Anomalous armament detected. Process status. Intake incomplete. Confiscation sequence. Failed. Error. Subject unbound. Ownership transfer unresolved. Recalculating. I raised an eyebrow. What the heck is happening right now? It was like the world didn't know what to do with this shotgun. Item classification required. Analyzing object. Designation unknown. Origin non infernal. Function ballistic weapon platform. Warning unsanctioned technology present. Error celestial class signature detected. Paladin judgment tree active. Reconciling equipment compatibility. Geez, it was like watching supply at gear turn in. I'd done plenty of time in God's Marine Corps, and the bureaucracy would kill you. Something slammed into the door, and I heard claws shriek down the metal. Anytime you want to figure this out, I muttered, tapping my foot. Infernal adaptation rejected. Judgment authority invoked. Weapon consecration initiated. The shotgun gleamed gold in my hands, and I started backward, but didn't drop it. Dropping firearms. Bad. Non infernal armament accepted. Status updated. Sanctioned anomalous equipment. M4 Benelli combat shotgun. Now, judgment platform. I raised an eyebrow. Nice, I said, looking at the shotgun. I can dig judgment platform. Warning. Claim contested. Celestial claim recognized. Infernal counterclaim denied. Infernal appeal denied. Suddenly, the golden glow spread from across the shotgun to my hands and across my forearms. The air hummed, but I felt no pain. Abruptly, the effect shut off. Paladin synergy established. Skill tree compatibility enabled. Radiant shot activated. Radiant shot? That was that skill I'd gotten before after I ganked Ugly. Sounded like it would be useful. Then a warning tone sounded. System note. Item anomalous within domain. Unauthorized variables increasing. At that moment, the door to my chamber screeched open and Ugly's brothers and sisters burst in. They held knives, cleavers, and other ramshackle weapons. There were about 5 of them, all limned in that red outline their buddy had had. I glanced down to check that it still had shells, and was surprised to see the info pop into the field of my vision. Judgment ammo. 3. 3 shells for this shotgun? Great. I was going to have to find an armory here somewhere. First things first. The gremlins bounded toward me, shuffling sideways like crabs to get to me. I swept the weapon up to my shoulder, got my sight picture, and fired. The weapon bucked in my hands, kicked against my shoulder, and sprayed sparks out of the barrel. With practiced ease, I kept the barrel down and pivoted to the next target. Training took over, and the second shot was going out as soon as the first made impact. Gremlin number 1 flew backward, half his skull missing and gloop flying through the air. The second shot took out his buddy, blasting its chest out through its back. The others froze for an instant, then screamed and dived for cover. I didn't blame them. It was a shotgun, doing shotgun things. The only cover they had was the stone table in the middle of the room, and I rushed it as soon as I saw what they were doing. I did not want a protracted firefight with only 1 round left. I was so focused on the enemy, I didn't see the glowing in the shell chamber. I saw text in the corners of my vision. The door itself showed error messages that I barely scanned as I dashed for the gremlins. Celestial energy detected. Warning. Domain destabilizing. I reached the table and jumped on top of it, my shotgun aimed down. Three terrified looking uglies looked back up at me. One raised a hand to try to stop me. I fired. It's hard to describe now, but it was like the shotgun fired with the normal sound, just with silence following it. All other sound in the room died. The explosions, chanting, flames crackling, even the screaming in the distance. The uglies didn't just shred with the blast, they melted. White hot light sprayed out of the M4's barrel, and while the metal rounds themselves mulched them, the light liquefied them. All three hostiles splattered all over the floor. Their outlines shifted to white. The text in my field of vision shifted. Judgment reserve depleted. Mana conversion initiated. Reconstituting shells. Before my eyes, I saw a new shell forming in the chamber from blue-tinged light. Both eyebrows shot up. Oh, now that is seriously cool. Then more text floated in the center of the room. Encounter completed. Kills 5. Isolated. XP multiplier times 2. XP gained 10. Level up. Oh crap, I said, and sure enough, that same menu popped in front of my vision, and I sure enough could not get out of it without choosing something. Okay, fine, I sighed. I glanced down at the ugly puddles on the floor. The last thing worked out pretty well, so why not? Select Judgment Skill. Radiant Shot, Level 2. Mark the Unclean, Level 1. Staggering Verdict, Level 1. Piercing Light, Level 1. Ashbreaker, Level 1. Whatever, I muttered, and tapped Mark the Unclean. I was starting to get the hang of this. It was like those video games kids were playing these days. The interface shifted and showed me a menu with my skills. Radiant Shot was already there, and Mark the Unclean joined it. I squinted at it, and like it knew what I wanted, a description opened up. Mark the Unclean, Level 1. Designate enemy to receive double damage for 3 seconds. Huh, I said, and glanced around. This place didn't work like any other combat zone I'd ever been in. Fine, what's this other one do? Radiant Shot, Level 1. Every third round in Judgment will gain radiant damage. Radiant was colored differently. I squinted at it next. Radiant damage. Double damage to infernal and undead. Disrupts infernal, undead, and burning effects. Burnings. What the frack was a burning? I glanced at the closet I'd pulled Judgment from. That thing had said that the subject, which I was assuming was me, didn't get the burning it was supposed to. Oh well, I guess I'd figure it out once I figured out. I'm just going to say figure it out several times, apparently. I guess I'd figure it out once I figured out which particular hellhole I was stuck in this time. Chapter 3. Assemble. I didn't seem to be in any further danger of being eaten alive or torn apart, so I took stock. All right, I'm not in a place I'm supposed to be. The place I'm not supposed to be in sucks. It has weird fires, and fairly bizarre liquid dripping from the ceiling, which I'm just going to assume is blood. Firelit runes cover the walls, and there's jacked up skeletons grinning at me while they hang from the walls. I hesitated. Look, the stereotype is that Marines are dumb, and in that moment, I'm not going to lie, I did not disprove the hypothesis. I should have known exactly where I was, and the only reason I didn't admit it to myself was pretty much sheer density. I grabbed the shotgun and moved out into the hallway. As soon as my foot crossed the threshold, a new status message scrawled along the screen next to the door. System alert. Unauthorized entity has exited intake containment. Binding status failed. Burning status null. Classification penitent. Containment protocols initiated. All processing personnel intercept and terminate subject. Do not allow ascent. I paused at that. Something in here was declaring war on me. Ascent, I muttered. All right. Let's figure out how to ascend. More text crawled across the screen. Containment failure confirmed. Anomalous soul in transit. All gates lock. All icons deploy. Great. Place was locking down. I didn't know what icons were, but this place seemed to think it would counter me escaping. Time to go. I moved out into the hallway, glancing left and right. People always made fun of me for looking both ways when crossing the street, but I just tell them they didn't spend 12 years being expendable. You learn to take care of yourself. Shocker, the hallway was more of the same decor. Twisted dark iron, garnished with grimy bones, lit by torches burning from the mouths of human skulls. Doorways yawned open down the length, drooling blood. They're terminating subjects. Like me. I grunted grimly. Next time you want to terminate a Marine, probably send more. I moved down the hallway at a jog. The floor felt warm, heated even, as my bare feet slapped on it. As I passed the first doorway, I popped around the corner and pied through the room, sweeping my shotgun from corner to opposite ceiling corner and down. Nothing. Just a body, ravaged by claws and weapons, leaking all over the floor. Not a clean kill, more like a frenzy. I'd seen stuff like that from Somalis mutilating fallen enemies. Text flashed on the doorway. Subject terminated. I checked each room as I moved down the hall, aiming judgment through each. Every one the same. A body, sometimes still on the table, sometimes on the floor, ripped to shreds. Same status message. Subject terminated. My jaw set and my breathing deepened. I don't like seeing prisoners killed. I don't care who they are. Kill a defenseless man or woman just for pissing you off, and a debt has been entered that I feel I'm equipped to collect. The hallway fed into a huge room, wide and open like an indoor parade ground. The first thing I saw were the immense chains leading to the distant ceiling. 4 of them, each hooked to a corner of a central panel laid into the ceiling. The second thing I saw was the bar fight. A full on melee swirled on the parade deck. Humans fought with the goblin things, wielding what looked like whatever weapons they could find. One was on his knees, slamming his shackles into a freak's broken fangs, while another picked one up bodily and threw it screaming into its buddies. Not everyone had died in their chambers then. My jaw set as I saw humans fighting for survival, and I stalked forward. Judgment boomed as I fired from the hip, cutting down a snarling gremlin. I pivoted, brought the stock to my cheek, fired again. Another splattered across the floor, caterwauling in agony. Then I fired the third shot. I aimed at the biggest concentration of monsters. I wanted to see what this radiant shot thing could really do. It did not disappoint. Light flashed across the walls, not the weak, burning illumination of flame, but white and pure. Something like a musical note preceded it. Then the metal ripped through the mass. The freaks in the center of the blast blew apart into burning ashes without even a chance to scream. Those on the fringes howled as they groped at shoulders suddenly missing pertinent arms or hip sockets lacking legs. The survivors staggered back, eyes wide. Even the humans hesitated, but not for long. Makeshift weapons thudded into gremlin flesh, and with screams of dismay, the beasts fell back, streaming down one central hall as alarms blared in the background. More annoying text filed across my vision. Encounter completed. Kills 8. XP divided among party 0.1x. XP gained 1. Cheapskate, I muttered. A prisoner walked up to me, a length of iron over his shoulder. He looked me up and down, then raised an eyebrow. Started with a gun, huh? That's different. Must be nice, another prisoner muttered. I looked at the first guy. Where'd you get yours? I asked. He tapped the bar against his palm. Yanked it from a sconce when the kill order came through. Yeah, some of us have to actually work hard, prisoner number 2 chimed in again, his eyes darting to my weapon. I glared at him. I earned mine, I said. Got it before they could send it away. Don't mind Justin, the first guy said, offering his hand. He's envy. They're all like that. Name's Darren. I raised an eyebrow, but shook his hand. Garcia. They're all like, what? Darren looked at me. His burning. It's envy. Mine's wrath. What's yours? I shook my head. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Darren chuckled. Man, didn't you read any of the tutorials before you started blasting? They should have told you what your burning was. I didn't get any tutorials. Maybe your pod was busted. Let me see. He held up a finger and tapped the air in front of him. Around us, other humans scavenged for weapons or helped each other's wounds. He stayed silent for a moment, then said, Huh. What? I asked, keeping my head on the swivel for another attack. He tapped the air a little harder. Says here you don't have a burning, but that can't be right. I thought back to the status messages in the chamber. Burning. Failed. Darren went on. This is hell. You've got to have a burning. It's probably hidden in a menu somewhere. Give me a sec to find it. Still don't have the hang of this frickin' system yet. Know what I mean? I stared at him. Did you say hell? I asked. He furrowed his brow. Yeah, dude. Hell. Where'd you think you were, Aruba? Hell, I repeated. Like, the hell? Hell, hell? The basement? The bad room downstairs? The hothouse? That hell? Darren spread his hands. Guess what? It exists. I was agnostic, too. Looks like I should have bet on white, huh? Justin walked up, his face screwed up in contempt. New guy doesn't even read the tutorial on this first time. Gets the toy anyway. I glanced at him. First time? I said again. Man, I felt like a freaking idiot. Darren ignored my question. Yeah, man, how'd you get the piece? Usually gotta start with nothing and work your way up. I shrugged. Something about a confiscation gone wrong? Apparently the system doesn't like me. I don't like you either, Justin sneered. Well, that just hurts my feelings, I said. The shotgun glowed for a second, letting me know it was fully reloaded. I racked it and glared at the little man. You'll get over it. Right about then, a new system message scrolled across my eyes, bright red and burning. Warning, icon bearer detected. The ceiling jolted and the immense chains began retracting. Ah, crap, Darren said, having to shout to be heard over the chains. What? I asked. Sub Prefect Razakel descending. Icon of submission activated. Do yourself a favor, friend, Darren said, dropping his weapon and lowering himself to the floor. Just kneel now. Save your knees some wear and tear. I glanced around, and sure enough, every other prisoner, all of them, were lowering to the ground. Even the freak Justin. The platform continued to lower from the ceiling, giant links of chain clanking like they were hauling ships. I almost couldn't hear my own thoughts at this point. Last line of text scrawled across my vision. All branded entities. Kneel. Well, that did it for me. Call me crazy, but Mama Garcia didn't raise no kneelers. I set my feet and kept my shotgun at the ready. Chapter 4. Demon. As the platform lowered, I saw the icon first. It was a circlet of twisted iron, set vertical on a pole. It twisted around it like a snake, like no metal I had ever seen before. The whole thing pulsed with heavy dread as it came into view, and every human inside of it moaned in pain. Processing disruption detected. Compliance failure observed. Correction in progress. Next came the demon, and that's what it had to be. Tall, skeletally thin, draped in a long cloak of what looked like human leather. The skin of its face pulled back tight, transparent as gossamer, revealing its skull. Its eyes were black as ink, and they locked onto me. Made sense. I was the only one still standing. The platform clanked into the ground with a resounding boom, and silence fell across the parade deck. All that I could hear was the shuddering breaths taken by the other prisoners. The newcomer looked at me for a bit, faint sulfur puffing from its mouth with every exhalation. After a moment, it lifted its icon and tapped it against the ground. Again, the dread thing pulsed, and every human in the area moaned. I glanced down and saw Justin whining, scratching at glowing brands in his skin that snaked through his flesh like veins of flame. You. That was all it said at first, as it stared at me with its shark-like eyes, head slightly askew. It seemed puzzled. You, it repeated. Stand. Sounded like a question. I'm a Marine, so therefore I am incapable of answering without some kind of sass. I lifted my chin. And you have a startling grasp of the obvious. That make you in charge around here? It blinked, the movement laboriously slow. It banged the icon against the floor more forcefully now, and the air shimmered with heat. The men around me cried out, writhing in place while still on their knees. All right, that's enough, I said. Whatever crap you're doing to them, cut it out. Another exhale of sulfur. Then a step toward me, each footfall that of talons scraping across steel. Whenever its staff tapped on the floor, Darren and the others groaned. It looked over me, 7 feet tall at least, but I was pretty sure I outweighed it. Soul, it said. Obey. It sounded annoyed. No, scratch that. It sounded miffed. It sounded like an admin flunky who had to present an award to a Marine whose hair was just out of regs. I grinned. All this weird crap, and suddenly things felt familiar again. No, I answered, giving it a sweet smile. A low growl escaped it. I am Subprefect Razakel, it said. Icon bearer of Depth 1, Sector 9, Node 11, intake processing. You will submit. It slammed its staff against the floor with that last syllable. Immediately, words sprang up before my eyes. Authority verified. Icon bearer of D1, S9, and 11. Icon active. I bowed slightly. I apologize, I said, Mr. Subperfect. I meant to say, no, sir. It looked down at me, then at the icon in its hand. It shook it like it was broken, and I got the real tangible impression that this had never happened before. Slowly, it turned its head back to me, and its eyes lit with flames as it raked its gaze across me. You do not burn, it stated flatly. Yeah, everyone keeps saying that, I said. Its brow furrowed. But you must burn. I held up a hand. What can I say? I'm a disappointment to my mother, too. It held my gaze for a moment, imperious and implacable. Then Razakil said something in a guttural language that would have shredded my vocal cords if I repeated it. Words splashed across my vision. Icon override. Command input issued. Worms. Subdue anomaly. Worms? I said. What are My question got answered real quick when Justin lurched to his feet. Fire still snaked through his flesh, but he gripped his length of pipe with a white-knuckled grip. I glanced over, and sure enough, Darren staggered toward me, face screwed up in agony. Every other human in the room, all of them with tongues of fire sizzling in their veins, came for me, raising weapons. I locked eyes with the demon. All right, fine, I said. The hard way it is. Chapter 5. Kill. Justin came first. His pipe cut through the air toward my head, his eyes wide and wet with pain. I blocked it with judgment and rocketed my elbow into his jaw. He staggered backward, and I charged into his chest with my shoulder. He hit the deck hard, air blasting from his lungs. I almost switched to another target, but he didn't stay down. The brands all over his arms flared like a welding torch inside his body, and he screamed, thrashing back to his feet. I breathed out shortly. Great. The rest came on. Darren, some skinny kid with a broken shovel handle, a bald guy with rebar, a woman with a length of chain, all of them shaking as they staggered toward me, all of them weeping trails of tears from their eyes. I don't want to kill these people. Justin lunged again. I stepped to the side and butt stroked him in the back of the head with the stock of my weapon. His head snapped forward and he dropped, twitching. I blocked Darren's wild swing with an elbow shielding my head, swiped down with a hammer fist to strip the weapon from his hand, and blasted him backward with a Spartan kick to the gut. Stop! I roared. But he pulled himself back to his feet, sobbing as his veins sizzled. My jaw set. I was surrounded by about 20 humans with makeshift weapons. From the snarls coming from the dark halls, more of those gremlin things were coming. Fine. I'm a Marine. You haven't been in a bar fight until you fought a Marine, and this Razakel guy didn't look like he'd ever been in a bar fight. The majority of the attackers were coming from my right. I smashed through the knot of bodies there, hammering Judgment's stock across jaws and collarbones until 3 of them went down in a pile. The instant there was daylight, I pivoted left, surging into open space to get that shot I needed. Razakel stood 10 yards away, exposed and vulnerable, icon lifted like a priest's cross over a condemned man. The brands across the humans pulsed in sync with his heartbeat, and I narrowed my eyes at him in hatred. That did something. My vision flickered, and something new slid into place across the demon's body. It was a thin gold outline, like he'd just been targeted. A message flashed across my vision. Mark available. Huh, I muttered. I glared at the demon again. The golden outline snapped tighter. Mark applied. The world sharpened, and suddenly, no matter how dark the room was, I could see good old Raz standing out from the black. Its chest burned with a faint halo, a glowing sigil hovering right over the center of his rib cage. At the same time, Judgment's iron sights flared with the same gold outline, and I felt the weapon drift in my hands, pulling toward that mark. Oh, I said. Now that's cool. The crowd behind me roared as Judgment came up to my shoulder. The bead settled directly on the mark, and I squeezed the trigger. Buckshot tore across the parade ground and slammed straight into his left pec like the pellets had been magnetized. Razakel staggered backward, free hand coming up to his chest. Roar! His eyes snapped down to the glowing sigil burning on his chest. What? I fired again. The recoil slammed into my shoulder and the buckshot hammered into the same spot, like the shotgun knew exactly where to send it. Pellets chewed through the weakened flesh and punched deep into the ribcage beneath. Something cracked with a dry, brittle sound. Razakel reeled, and the icon dipped. His skull face twisted in fury as he angled toward me. You! Judgment roared, and this time the third shell left the barrel with a sound that did not belong in hell. Thunder cracked. Golden fire erupted from the muzzle. Tiny suns blazed as they crossed the distance, and the mark on Razakel's chest ignited as radiant shot hit him square in the sternum. The golden blast ripped into the demon and detonated inside his chest. It punched through him, igniting the infernal corruption in his body, setting the ugly bastard on fire. Razakel threw himself backward, screaming and thrashing at the flame suddenly consuming its chest. 7 feet of demon smashed into the steel wall behind it with a crash that rang through the entire parade ground. The icon slipped from his grip and clanged across the floor. I charged. Every human was on the ground, weeping with pain. My feet pounded the deck between them toward the crumpled demon. More specifically, the icon. Something toned, and I saw through my peripheral that Judgment had reloaded a single round already. I skidded to a stop next to the burning demon. Blue-white fire crawled through the hole blasted in its ribcage, spreading like lightning through shattered clouds. Wherever it touched, the meat shriveled and peeled away in strips of smoking black ash. Razakel snarled at me, black eyes wide with depthless fury. How? It pawed at its chest, skeletal fingers digging at the glowing wound, trying to scoop the fire out as the radiant energy chewed deeper into him. I set the mouth of Judgment on the icon's head. I don't know, man. I just got here, I said, and pulled the trigger. The pole of the icon split as buckshot hammered through it, striking sparks on the metal deck. Immediately, golden cracks spiderwebbed across the twisted circlet, and the iron shrieked. No! Razakel screeched. Judgment toned again, and I fired. This time, the blast deformed half of the symbol, and the icon died. It didn't shatter all at once, not like most things when they get shredded by a shotgun. It's more like it failed, catastrophically, like a suspension bridge collapsing a piece at a time into a river. The metal unwound like a nest of snakes, peeling off and flaming out onto the deck. Crimson orange runes overloaded and burned to ashen smears. Then the freaking thing exploded, hurling what looked like ethereal screaming skulls across the parade deck with howls of rage. System warning. Icon destroyed. Command relay offline. Intake center compromised. Recalculating command structure. Error. Recalculating. Error. 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 Across the chamber, the brands flickered. Justin dropped to his knees, gasping like a drowning man. Darren dropped his weapon and sagged, weeping into his hands. I looked back at the demon, laying supine on the deck, back against the wall while clutching the hole in its gut. It stared at the shattered icon on the floor. Ah, dude, I said. That was probably expensive, huh? The demon's black eyes locked onto me, and brimstone gusted from its mouth, mixing with the flood of crimson pouring between its fangs. No irritation now. No administrative annoyance. Just good, old-fashioned hatred. You, he rasped, know not what you do. Then the distant boom rolled through the facility again. Closer. Something screamed somewhere deep inside the intake center. Not human. Breach detected. Non-infernal entity present. All infernal entities initiate immediate evacuation. Abandon node. Razakel's head snapped upward. For the first time since I'd met him, The demon looked afraid. No, it breathed, shaking its head. Impossible. Judgment pinged one more time, a higher pitch. I knew what that meant now, and I leveled the shotgun. This time, the radiant shotgun blast cored the demon's skull like a watermelon. Brain and bone slopped out the back of its head to splatter against the wall and drip down in thick rivulets. Holy! I turned to see Darren picking himself up from the deck. He stared at the dead demon. You killed it! Encounter complete. Target terminated. Sub-Prefect Razikel. Icon bearer D1, S9, and 11. Authority node destroyed. Processing results. Error. Error. I rolled my eyes. Geez, what's wrong with you now? I muttered. The frackin' status message was fritzing out of my eyes. Rule violation detected. Subject not authorized to kill processing staff. I blinked at that, then started laughing. Are you freaking kidding me? I choked. I broke a rule? Darren stared at me. Yeah, dude, you're not allowed to kill them. He came over to me. Bro, how are you still standing? Corrective action in process. Failure. Subject unbranded. Unable to enact corrective action. Resume resolution. I scratched at the back of my neck, waiting for the interminable screed of text to finish. Seems like a bad thing to be branded, I muttered. You're not? Darren asked. I would have answered, but the system wasn't done with me yet. Key bearer encounter resolved. Multipliers isolated. Outnumbered. Key bearer. XP multiplier times 25. XP gained 250. My eyebrows shot up. Wow, I said. That's more. Level gained. Level gained. Level gained. Holy crap, Darren breathed. You're level 5 already? D1, S9, and 11 key obtained. Hey, what's a key? I asked. You got his key? I glanced at Darren. I'm not going to get much useful info out of you, am I? Then the text changed color to red error text. Anomaly status escalated. Unauthorized progression detected. Automated review underway. Anomaly classification updated. Threat level ascending. Game status unstable. Arbitration alerted. Remain in place for arbitrator. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, I said. Darren, get your crap. Time to go. Chapter 6. Access denied. Please contact Infernal HR. Whoops. I messed things up. I lost my spot. Alarms kept blazing throughout the parade ground. The fight's over, I yelled. That thing said they were evacing, so what's this place's problem? Darren shrugged, but then some text popped up. Containment compromised. Seals broken. Reactor in catastrophic failure. Evacuate. Okay, I said. That actually does sound bad. Around us, humans fled the area, some of them screaming, some of them scooping up fallen weapons. Only Justin and Darren were with me. One sec, gotta yell at my kids. Sorry, I had to go a little marine there. I looked at Darren. Answer me honestly here, I said. Is running from this reactor actually going to accomplish anything? Again, the shrug. Seemed to be his thing. It's hell, he said. Power works different down here. Could be nuclear, or it could be some really big demon chained down here that's breaking out. Oh, it's something big, Justin chimed in. We glanced at him. I'm a power plant guy, topside, he said. I looked askance at that phrasing, but decided to let it go. This is an intake center. It's generating bodies and weapons for the game from raw material. That takes serious output. Great, I said. So running is. Justin shook his head. You'll just die tired. I rolled my shoulders, cracking my neck. I got here 20 minutes ago, and already I'm in hell killing demons with a holy shotgun, and now I have to go defuse a nuclear reactor that might be an even bigger, angrier demon. That sound about right? Darren and Justin nodded. I sighed. Okay, dead is dead, I guess. Let's go calm this thing down. We jogged into the big hallway that fed into the parade ground. Red lights strobed across the blackened metal, and shadows darted through the smoke billowing through the passage. A gremlin looked up at me, and I blew it away with a single blast from judgment. This look like the right way? I barked at Darren, stepping over the headless corpse leaking into the deck. Darren pointed. Look, you got that horny boy's key, right? Horny boy. Demon. Funny. I looked down where he was pointing. There was a little alcove set apart with what looked like an altar. Yeah, the messages said so. Then you can access the map stations, he said. Just hit up one of those. I stopped. A map station? I asked. The frick is that? Justin answered this time. What are you, retarded? Every hell facility is unique, not built to any blueprints or nothing. So to get around, demons put map stations in so they and any visitors can figure out where they are. I ignored the little freak's sarcastic whine. So I can access those now? I asked. Darren shrugged. You got the key, so I assume. I chuckled darkly. Well, they only say good stuff about assuming, am I right? I jogged up to the altar. How do I use it? I asked, running my eyes over the soot-blackened stone. Darren drew up next to me. Here, hold your hand over this. That's what I see them doing. I held my hand, palm down, over a central disc on the altar. Like this? Red light beamed up from the disc as flame-wrought runes lit around the altar. Text splashed across my sight. Map station D1, S9, and 11 activated. Stand by for verification. Without warning, a needle jabbed up out of the disc and skewered my palm. Gah! I yelled and yanked my hand back. Biosignature sample acquired. Verifying authorities. I sucked on the throbbing hand. Geez, thanks for the warning, bro, I snapped at Darren. He shrugged. It's hell, man. What'd you think was going to happen? Okay, he had a point. I was still pissed, though. Some informed consent would have been great, I muttered. Something along the lines of, hey, the password system freaking stabs you. New text flickered. Error. User status unbranded. The altar hummed loudly. What's happening? I asked, raising my shotgun a little higher. Darren shook his head. I don't know, man. Justin was already edging back. Reanalyzing signature. Celestial contamination detected. Something smoked in the altar. I might be breaking it, I said slowly. Authority token detected. Key bearer D1, S9, and 11. Sub-prefect override engaged. Something whirred inside, then it clicked. Map access granted. Immediately, a 3D diagram overlaid my vision, and I staggered back a step. Whoa, I said. Okay, now you should be able to navigate it with your fingers, Darren said. Just kind of pinch and drag. Like this? I asked, and suddenly the overview zoomed in. Jeez! Screw this, Justin said, stomping past me. I'm not waiting on Turd Brain here to tell us where to go before we get vaporized. Darren tried to pull him back, but the little man shoved him and slapped his hand onto the altar. The same runes lit up as before. Map station D1, S9, and 11 activated. Stand by for verification. Justin winced as the needle sprang from the altar and speared his hand. Biosignature sample acquired. Verifying authorities. The altar hummed. A heartbeat later, the altar's light switched from red to black. Error. Worm access attempt detected. What the heck? Justin started, trying to pull his hand back, but the needle lunged from the altar like a viper. This time it rode a metal tail like a snake. It punched through one of his shoulders, looped back around, and bored through the other. Justin screamed as it slammed him down onto the altar. Unauthorized access to infernal systems. Security protocol engaged. Without warning, the altar split open like a mouth. Iron fangs lined a maw of sharpened, rotating blades, and Justin shrieked as the needle snake jerked him in. Darren and I jumped forward, trying to grab his legs, trying to pull him out. It was too late. The altar chomped down on Justin's torso, and hot blood exploded from his body to spatter across everything. The screams stopped as a high pitched screeching emitted from the blade sawing through bones, and Darren and I both let go as the altar retracted the rest of its kill into its mouth. Blood geysered from the altar as Justin's bare feet disappeared into the grinding gears. We stared at the bloodied altar as it closed back up. Unauthorized access resolved. Worm neutralized. Reprocessing initiated. Returning to intake stream. Dude, I said through grit teeth. What was that? Darren looked pale. Uh, guess you really need that key, he said weakly. I swiped my forearm across my face, clearing the worst of Justin's organic shrapnel. Fury burned in my gut, but I needed a clear head. Facility's still burning down, I snarled. Fix that, then I'm coming back for blood. Chapter 7. And I did not enter the chapter name on this for some reason. I'll fix that later. I turned my back on the bloodied alcove and its cannibal cartographic altar and stepped back out into the parade corridor. Red lights strobed all around me. Screams knifed through the air, split only by the wailing klaxons, and shadowy figures scrabbled toward me on all fours, desperately pulling at the deck plates to speed their escape. It was a tide of desperation, demons flailing to save their own lives. I set myself against them and leveled judgment. The first shot tore a freak's head off its shoulders and threw it back against the passage wall. I panned the Benelli M4 to the right and blasted a gremlin into kibbles and slime. Huh, powers increased. Oh yeah, probably from ganking that sub-prefect. Levels or something. Cool, let's limit test this then. I aimed down the center of the corridor and pulled the trigger. 5 seconds later, I was done blinking the stars out of my eyes, and my eyebrows raised slowly. Darren stared unabashedly. Holy. Yeah, I said. Actually, probably. Radiant shot had drilled through all the demons in the passageway, filling their eyes and mouths with blue-white fire and burning them to sludge and ash. Literal piles of ash puffed across the floor, with the smoke pouring from the ceiling. Whatever that thing is, Darren snarled, I want one. His voice sounded off. I glanced over at him. His hands shook in front of him, his fingers curled around that pipe. His veins were almost glowing, like I could see them through his skin. His breath ripped through his lungs, each exhale forceful and almost painful. Dude, I asked, you good? He glared at me. My friend just got killed by a map with teeth. No, I'm not freaking good. He turned around and hammered his pipe against that altar, suddenly screaming profanity at the top of his lungs. Wham! 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 His pipe bent. He didn't care. He just laid into that thing. I understood. I did. I'd seen my brothers in the Corps get ganked by whatever flavor of the day enemy of freedom we were fighting that week, plenty of times. But we're professionals. Lose your head on the battlefield to go Berserker King, and you'd get more than just yourself killed. So I put a hand in his chest and shoved him back against the wall, sergeant style. Cool it, I barked. You getting pissed and losing it isn't going to bring your buddy back. And it's probably going to get one or both of us killed. Get a grip. His eyes flared with that weird heat again, but I didn't blink. I'd backed down plenty of raging kids in my time, and I wasn't flinching here. It helped that I'm a bigger guy. Years of working out on Uncle Sam's dollar paid off. Slowly, he slumped. Yeah, he said. Yeah, man, you're right. I let him go, keeping an eye on him. I'd also seen plenty of kids pretend to be cool just so they could break free and run for it. Darren didn't do that. He scratched at his arms now, really digging into the soft flesh there. It's the burning, man, he said. Makes things worse. Talk and walk, I said. Best thing for a friend with vengeance on his brain was a mission, so I was bringing Darren with me. What's a burning? You keep saying that like it's not what I think burning is. Our bare feet clanged against the decking as we moved. I kept my eyes flitting around, checking fore and aft as we went. Last thing I needed was to get ganked by a freaking demon with a poop spear. I was pretty sure infections in hell didn't go well. Burning, Darren said, trying to get his breathing under control. It's like whatever sin you commit the most, gets branded onto you down here. Okay? A lot of weird in that sentence, but I let him talk. Mine's wrath, he said. My temper just takes over, and I get stronger and faster, feel less pain, but I don't reason too good. Great. I was wandering around an exploding reactor in hell with a berserker. I checked a corner and saw a Gribbly twitch on the floor, trying to hide among bodies. One quick trigger pull made its act authentic. Okay, what about Justin? You said he was envy? Yeah, Darren said, taking longer strides to keep up. Civilians never walked as fast as Marines. Yeah, they're really smart, but it's only to get what they want. If you got something they want, they never leave you alone till they get it. And depending on how deep their burning goes, they'll do literally anything until it's theirs. Huh, I said, patting judgment. He wanted this. Darren nodded. Yeah, he'd have gone for it eventually, probably. I cracked my neck. All right, good to know. We hit the first security gate a minute later. There was a hand plate on the wall next to it. Crap, I muttered. I gotta get stabbed again? Darren shook his head. Nah, man, facility's already tasted you. You think demons want to get stabbed all day, too? I sighed and walked up to the panel. Text flared up in front of me. Security gate D1S9. Access restricted. I slapped my hand against it. In the Corps, you'd get hypodermic shots from the Navy as part of your vaccinations, and if you didn't lean into that thing, they'd blow a hole in your arm. Seen too many guys walking around with scars because they flinched. So I smacked that thing. Key bearer verified. Sub prefect access accepted. The door rumbled open, shaking in its tracks. Whatever was tanking this facility was wrecking the mechanicals, too. Immediately, a demon leapt through. At least it tried to. Before I could get my shotgun up, the gate slammed back down with a roar and smashed the thing to paste. Unauthorized user. I glanced over at Darren. Uh, I don't think you're authorized either. So maybe let me handle this reactor thing alone, huh? Darren stared at the smashed corpse. Yeah. Yeah, I'll meet you outside. Lest we get vaporized, you know? Yeah. I headed through the gate, hearing it slam shut behind me. Now I was alone, staring down a passageway of blackened metal that sloped down into darkness. I sighed. Follow the hello brick road, I guess. No one laughed at my weak joke. The heat rose the further I descended. Above me, thick liquid sloshed through transparent pipes. I tried not to look too close, but I was pretty sure eyeballs were floating in it, and one time I saw a hand dragging down the glass. The passageway dumped me into a large room, filled with some kind of pods or cylinders on the walls. I called up the map real quick with a mental command and saw that I was passing through something called the Reprocessing Foundry. There was a label I could tap, so I did. Reprocessing, I cannot say this word. Reprocessing, am I saying it right? Reprocessing Foundry. Function, workfloor, workforce reclamation. Description. The Foundry ensures uninterrupted game participation by restoring terminated subjects to operational status. All personnel are subject to reassignment upon reconstitution. Compliance note: repeated failure events may result in behavioral correction. Return, rebuild, redeploy. No soul left behind. Ugh, that last little slogan hit a little too close to home. I looked around the room. There were thin vertical slits in the metal of the pods, and I could see shadowy figures hanging in some kind of liquid in there. Reconstitution, I said slowly. So souls come back? Made sense. We were already in hell. Where does somebody go when they die in hell? Back. They go back. I saw something scrawled on the wall in what was probably blood. You keep dying. I keep laughing. Never stop trying. Okay, I said, glancing around. A distant explosion rocked the floor, reminding me of the urgency of my present task. Creepy wall art could wait. According to the map, the reactor room was close. I'm sure that would be normal. Chapter 8. Sarah. Nothing guarded the entry to the reactor room. That was because they were all busy. The first thing that hit me was the heat. The air scorched as I moved through it, and I grimaced at the sensation. I wouldn't be able to take too much of that. The room itself reached up 3 or 4 stories. The reactor vaulted from the deck to the ceiling, a giant cylinder with secondary pipes branching crazily all over the room. Flames roared in those pipes, and I could see steam and smoke venting. Columns ringed the chamber, mounted by demonic statues with arms wide open toward the reactor. I ducked behind one of those columns, and blessedly, the heat dropped to a manageable level. I poked my head out for another look. On the deck, shadows ran all around. One of them was a little larger than the others, and it worked at a console, yanking levers and hammering buttons with an urgency I'd only seen in the very desperate. I narrowed my eyes at it. Mark target? Yes, I said. Mark acquired. Target, Gorza. Rank, facility manager. Function, keep very dangerous things from becoming someone important's problem. Current performance, failing. I blinked. The text looked different, and the tonal shift was surprising from the sterility of previous messages. Something exploded nearby, scattering burning metal across the deck. I glanced up and saw a funnel of flame spouting from a broken pipe. The goblin marked as Gorza yelled, "No! Shunt that one's power back to the others and spread it out!" Another goblin working frantically nearby screeched back, "We can't! We're pushing integrity limits as it is! We'll lose the whole system!" Gorza wheeled around and smacked him so hard the critter's face smashed into the control board. "We die here or writhing in some barren small intestine, maggot! We cannot let this thing out!" The goblin jumped on top of the control board, ignoring the gang of underlings working beneath him. "Get this under control now!" he screamed. "Get that breach patched and power flow restored!" A smaller freak scrabbled up to him. "The leaks are spreading! We're losing intake!" Gorza hammered him with a backhand, and I grunted in sympathy. Little dude's leadership style seems simple enough. "Who cares about intake? Focus on what matters, which is as long as..." I forgot a word here. "Focus on what matters, which is how long it's going to take the Dukes to peel our skin off our bodies if we lose the product." He twisted around. "Speaking of which, get all product out now. We have a week's worth waiting for the tram. I'm not losing everything here." Some gremlins broke off into an adjoining passage, chittering among themselves. Gorza hurled a wrench at them. "Move it! Now! Get this under control now!" Something screamed within the central cylinder, and sparks sprayed from adjoining consoles. Goblins covered their ears as the shriek reached almost unbearable levels. My eyes widened. There's something in there. I glanced at the pipes above and realized all the flames were flooding into the reactor, not away. The reactor itself shuddered, struggling to contain the power shoved into it. I narrowed my eyes, feeling my skin start to scorch as I kept sweeping the area. There was a conveyor belt with crates on it. Goblins grabbed them and ran into that passage, screaming and cursing at each other to be careful. I saw firelight glint from glass within, and something phosphorescent blue glowing. I tracked back from that point and saw an open crate resting just under the reactor. Something toned, barely heard over the roaring flames and screaming, and a mechanical arm pulled a clear vial of glowing blue liquid and set it within the crate. They weren't just trapping whatever was in there, they were farming it. Whatever it was in the reactor screamed again, the sound pure and high, almost musical. It sounded like a kid. A chill ran across my skin, even in hell. Suddenly, the numbers didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter that more than 40 hostiles scrambled around the chamber. It didn't matter that the heat threatened to blister the skin from my face. All that mattered was the screaming in that chamber and the shotgun gripped tight in my palms. I moved. I exploded from the column, grimacing at the sudden blast of heat. I lifted Judgment's stock to my shoulder and cut a goblin down with a shot. The critter hit the ground, screaming. No one turned to see. There were plenty of explosions happening right now. I pounded forward and fired again, hitting a goblin on the control board and smashing it against the interface. Gorza twisted, no doubt ready to deliver some more motivation, saw the shredded skull of his subordinate, lifted his eyes, and saw me coming. I barreled right for the control board. I could feel the kill urge in my body, hot and ready. A goblin turned to see me, I ran him over. These things were 3 foot tall and maybe 60 pounds. It was like trampling a child. Gorza raised a hand, screaming a denial as I hammered my buttstock into his chest. The goblin flew backward and caromed off the conveyor belt to hit the deck. I jammed my shotgun into the control board as the little overseer staggered back to its feet. Don't! It screeched. I pulled the trigger. My third shots blasted holy energy through the control board. Blue-white lightning coruscated across the electronics, arcing down into the floor and crawling up to the ceiling. The orange flames in the pipes flared with energy, then faded to charcoal black. The reactor coughed once, then shut down. Critical system failure detected. Power level critical. Subsystem containment control array. Status offline. Reinitialization. Failed. Suppression field. Failed. Asset containment field. Failed. Extraction lattice. Failed. System terminated. Silence fell across the chamber, and with it, the heat shut off. The silence lasted about 2 seconds until Gorza wailed with the sound of frustration and horror mixed together. He met my gaze and stabbed a clawed finger at me. This isn't over, worm, he caterwauled. They're all coming for you. You don't even know what you've done. Then he tucked tail and ran, his little mob scampering after him. I let them go. Shotgun was empty, and there was still something in that reactor chamber. I stalked up to it, still feeling the urge to kill tighten my limbs. My eyes darted everywhere, making sure one of those freaks wasn't about to jump out on me. I wanted to step under the base of the reactor to get closer to the glass, but the deck was burning my bare feet as it was, and the reactor would probably melt the flesh off of them if I tried. So I called out, Hey, you okay in there? What happened next was not what I expected. The metal of the reactor chamber dissolved. It didn't melt, explode, or tear. It just disintegrated, pouring like sand onto the deck. And she emerged. Fairy was the closest thing I could think of. About 6 inches tall, flitting on wings that were more like strands of lightning than birds' wings. This tiny spark of light shot from the reactor and spiraled around me. Tinkling laughter surrounded me, childlike and full of joy. I staggered backward, sort of raising judgment, but not sure what to do. Finally, the zipping little thing came to a rest in front of me, and I saw what looked like a young woman with silver white hair, delicate features, and a big smile on her face. Thank you so much for letting me out of there. Oh, it's been so boring. She sounded like a British college girl. Courtesy ran on autopilot while my brain tried to process this. You're, welcome? You doing okay? She took a big breath and let out a happy sigh. Yes, so much better now, thanks to you. You are so nice. I grunted at that. First time I've heard that. She stuck out a tiny hand, and I realized she wanted me to shake it. Hi, she said. I'm Sarah. Involuntarily, a small smile tugged at my burned cheeks, and I gently shook her hand. I'm Mike, I said. Mike, Sarah gushed, clapping her hands in front of her. I just know we're going to be best friends. And that's it. That's all I got so far. If you guys are enjoying, make sure you follow me on Royal Road so you get more chapters. I will try to do more readings like this, so that people can who like can't read it or don't want to read it on Royal Road will at least be able to stick with the story, maybe while you guys are doing work at home or something like that. Again, go to Royal Road to keep up with the story. Go to my website to pick up any other of my books that you guys are interested in. I am doing my own audiobooks, so if you guys like the way that I read, when I can pronounce the words correctly, you guys can check those out. They're available DRM free from my website. And other than that, hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend.